Hello, and welcome to the Empowered Learning Podcast. This is your host, Andy Bennett. On today's episode, we welcome my good friend, Dale Yim. Dale is an accomplished actor of stage and TV, a certified life coach and financial advisor, a lifelong entrepreneur spanning film, culinary, construction, education, and hospitality, and one of the most genuine, caring, and thoughtful humans I've ever encountered. Welcome, Dale.
Hello, Dale. How you doing, my friend?
I'm great, Andy. How are you?
I'm doing good. I think I probably say this on other podcasts, but no offense to any of the other ones. I have been looking forward to this one for a very long time. It honestly feels like we've known each other for years and years and years. It's not been the case, but I can't think of the last person that I hit it off with just immediately from the onset. It's just been long lost pals from the get-go. That's how I feel anyways. And so super excited that you're on the podcast, bud.
Likewise, I'm excited to be here, man. I'm looking forward to chatting.
Lots of fun. So as you saw the intro coming in here, I ran out of space of all of the accolades and all of the cool things that Dale has done in his life. We were talking before, 2, maybe 4 episodes. We'll just see how it all goes. There's just so much we want to uncover. But if we can kind of summarize, Dale, tell us a little bit about your background, kind of how you got to where you're at now, and we'll dive into kind of some of the things that you're passionate about.
Yeah, I'll try to keep it short. I've had a very meandering journey since finishing high school. I went into engineering school. Worked for a little while. I was an absolutely depressed engineering student, and I ended up doing other jobs. I worked in construction. I taught computers. I tutored for a long time. Eventually ended up going to theater school, and I thought I'd be graduating as a technical director or lighting designer or something. But I ended up doing more work as an actor than anything backstage, and did the acting thing for a while. My family opened up a restaurant, and I took a part-time leave of absence from my part-time gigs in the hospitality industry, mostly in the hospitality industry, to help them out with the restaurant. They were in way over their heads, and 12 years later, we finally closed the restaurant.
Wow.
It was a good run, but I eventually realized, I had some time to catch up with myself. I realized that I was a very depressed person. I needed to heal, and so I took a bunch of time with myself and spent time with my kids, my family. And somewhere along the way, the coaching thing called out to me. And here I am now. I'm a life coach. I'm a certified life coach. I'm a financial professional. I'm fully suable for any advice that I give you as far as, money matters go, at least here in the province of Ontario. And I am a spiritual and financial life coach. That's the things I want to talk about.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Which, again, going back to our conversation pre-recording, there's just so much to dive into and so much to talk about. And that's why I love our conversation, just because it's one of those things you really never know where we're going to go. If I'm having a rough time with this or that, you've got amazing wisdom and have kind of spoken to my life multiple times of just some very sound advice and very caring advice. So from me to you, thank you so much for that. It really does mean a lot to me. You have become, even though we are 1,000 miles away, you've become a very dear friend to me. So I appreciate that, man.
Likewise. Yeah, man.
Awesome. So, like you said, meandering, I think that's a perfect word. If from the outside looking in, if you just look at the rap sheet of kind of the different places you've landed and different things you've done, lots of a wide range of different things like this. I wanted to talk a little bit about the restaurant industry. It sounds like that was not something that you really ever had, a lot of passion about. Obviously, you care for and you wanted to support your parents, but that was kind of I think the word you used was kind of coming in to help them out. But that was like a 12-year, I think, journey that was kind of a push pause on other stuff while that took place. Tell me about that.
Yeah, it's wild. It was completely unexpected. You're absolutely right on that. Growing up as a kid, I always knew that there were a few things I did not want to do when I grew up, whatever growing up meant. One was that I did not want to be a garbage person. God bless them. I just, it's not my gig. And I did not want to be a dentist or a dental hygienist. I didn't want to spend the rest of my life looking at other people's smelly mouths. Not my idea of a good time. And I did not want to be a business person. I didn't want to go into
Mm.
anything business or entrepreneurship related or
Okay.
something. And a lot of people were encouraging me to consider doing something entrepreneurial or get into the corporate business world or something. And I
Hmm.
said, no, I'd grown up seeing a lot of my, seeing my parents and their contemporaries. A lot of them were immigrants. They had no choice but to just open some small business, and they just struggled. It was a struggle after a
Right.
struggle, and I just had a lot of negative associations with business, with
Right.
entrepreneurship. So I said I would never ever want to do that. Of
Hmm.
course, you get into the acting thing, and it is in itself, it's a business. It is the
Hmm.
biz, as some
Sure.
people
Right.
would call it. And being an actor in this town generally means that you work in the hospitality industry. The joke is, if you tell another person, if they say that you're an actor, you usually respond back, which restaurant or bar do you work at? And it's kind of true. Like, most of
Sure.
us work somehow in the restaurant or bar or catering scene.
Hmm.
So I had my fair share of time doing that. And my parents, when they told me about this restaurant, I came and I saw it, and I realized, man, they needed a lot of help. Being the good son I am, I wasn't trying to be an entrepreneur. I was just trying to be a helpful son.
Right.
I thought I'd be serving tables and translating menus into English and that kind of
Hmm.
stuff, um, but it was a huge place. They were in way over their heads, and
Wow.
what I thought was a temporary leave of absence turned into, years,
Hmm.
months, years later, extension, and it really gave me a first hand view, like a first person view of what entrepreneurship was all about. And I'm really, as much as I was surprised by it, and as much as traumatic as the entire experience really was for me,
Hmm.
I'm really thankful for it by the end of now I'm super thankful that I had that experience, that had that time to serve people in that capacity, and to reshift my association with business, with entrepreneurship, with the restaurant industry, with culinary arts. Like, it gave me a completely different appreciation for not just the industry as a whole, but the people behind there. And
Hmm.
that's really key. One of the things I would say to the trainees whenever I was training new staff, be they bussers or dishwashers or servers, I would tell them, we don't serve food.
Mm.
That's conception. When you think about a common misconception, when people think,
Right.
oh, you go to the restaurant and you ask, well, what food do you serve? And I say, well, the food is the food, but we don't serve food. We are people serving people,
Mm.
right? You
Mm.
shouldn't look at them and think about them
Right.
as money. They shouldn't think about us as money. They shouldn't think about us as menu items or something like that. It's really, we're trying to engage with people on a personal level. So yeah, I would tell them, if anything, you may or may not love the job, you may or may not do really well here, you might not stick around, or you might, but if anything, I want you to learn how to serve people, right? And how
Mm.
to engage with them, and how to get past all of the layers, the surface layers of that transactional thing, and get
Mhm.
into a personal interaction. And what we're trying to do is, we're not just trying to throw a bunch of food at people and take money from them. We're trying to facilitate conversations for them, right? So they
Mm.
can share stories, so they can rethink
Right.
about their relationships, and have deeper conversations. These are not things to be taken lightly. We may or may not make money from it.
Mm.
We may not make a lot of money. Even if we make a lot of money, we might make money some months and lose money in other months. But there are so many other layers of things that are happening along the way, right? That maybe people will come and have a slightly different idea of Korean food, because we were a Korean restaurant.
Okay.
So their ideas of Korean food and what authentic Korean cuisine
Mhm.
is all about, especially in the context of North America, right? What is
Right.
authentic North American Korean food?
Mhm.
Their ideas of what a restaurant is about, their ideas of food and value, and hopefully get into some of the deeper things. What are the
Mhm.
stories that are connected with
Right.
this? How does food bring people together? And what are some of the things that could open up?
Mhm.
Um, I mean, beyond that too, from a business point of view, sometimes we weren't necessarily making money, but we were employing,
Right.
dozens, hundreds at some point, people at a time.
Wow.
and you had thousands of people coming in through our doors.
Hmm.
That's not a small thing just to be,
Sure.
written off just for the
Right.
sake of bottom line. We're talking about impacting and
Mm.
transforming and things that are intangible, that we may not actually ever see the fruits of or feel the effects of, after one sitting or even a year or even in our lifetimes. But it doesn't mean it's not any less worth undertaking. And I
Right.
think that's what shifted for me the most, is this bringing entrepreneurship back to its root word of an undertaking, somebody who undertakes something. I think it's actually originally, in some of the original, you know emergings of the word entrepreneur. I think they all have to do with theater shows, ironically enough,
Mm.
funnily enough.
Right.
But these theater companies, these theater troops, they would consider it worth doing this undertaking so that they could put on the show for whatever reason. And from an artistic point of view, from an entertainment point of view, sure, we love to do art that's entertaining, but
Hmm.
we'd also love to do art that is that speaks to our soul. It feeds the
Hmm.
soul, right? It's
Right.
transforming. The Greeks call it catharsis. We want
Hmm.
to take people on a journey that doesn't
Right.
just give them a chuckle, but maybe asks them and invites them to reframe
Mhm.
relationships, their journeys, their lives, and rethink about something on a deeper level, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I appreciated that time, and it gave me a bigger idea and a firsthand real understanding of how, business is great and making money is important and fantastic, but sometimes the conversations that we needed to have, I found, especially in my time working with the parents, some of the conversations that we needed to have
Mm.
were not about, you know the marketing and making things more efficient and
Right.
scheduling and managing and location and all these logistics of business, but it had to do with the underlying mindset,
Mm.
the deeper goals that transcended beyond bottom line into, like, what kind of an impact do we want to have on people's lives, right?
Right.
And those are the conversations that I feel like, um, through that I wanted to have more of. I was struggling
Mhm.
with this idea of how can we have more empowering, powerful, deeper conversations with entrepreneurs, with my parents, with
Right.
myself, with other entrepreneurs in the industry, in other industries. How can we
Mhm.
reframe it? If it
Right.
wasn't just about making money, what are the undertakings that are worthwhile?
Mm.
And how can we have the conversations? How can I have conversations and ask questions that would push people more deeply into the places that they need to go,
Mm.
and the places that they need to be in,
Right.
so they could be better entrepreneurs, more impactful, um,
Hmm.
people and human beings, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. No, I love that. I love that. As you were talking, it made me think a little bit of, um, I would think in that role, obviously you care for and you love your parents. You were there. You were spending the time there. I would imagine, as is the case with any parent-child relationship, you guys may not always see eye to eye on things, and you might have had a different mindset on aspects of things, generational, whatever the case may be. I guess what were some of the lessons that you learned in, rather than it being kind of a parent child, it's kind of a side by side, like we are working together on this. Yes, you're still my parents, but we're kind of on equal footing at this point. I would imagine that was a growth process as well, wasn't it?
Yeah. It's trippy on so many levels. It's not just, as you aptly pointed out, not just on the parent-child kind of level, but there is an intercultural kind of level.
Sure.
It's not, I'm born here in Canada, which essentially makes me not very Korean in a lot of my mentality, whatever that
Mhm.
means. Like, what is a
Right.
Korean mentality or Korean mindset versus a Canadian mindset? What is that all
Mm-hmm.
about? And there's a generational mindset. They're coming from a particular generation, and I'm coming from, my generation. I'm born in and then I'm training people who are also from a different generation. So
Right.
there's all these sort of generation gaps
Sure.
and addressing, what are people's motivations and drivers. I used to
Mhm.
drive interviewees crazy because I'd have these crazy long interviews and I'd ask questions like, if you had $50 million right now, you won the jackpot, what
Mhm.
would you do? And they'd ask, why do you care? Like, what does this have to do with anything? I just want to bust a table. I'm just here for a dishwasher job,
Right.
man.
Right. I love it.
Um, but I'm trying to get into that mindset, and there's also my experience versus their experience, our experience as a society, where I would see things and I talk about, some of the saddest things about Korean culture to me is how so much of what I see in Korean culture, they're just so dog eat dog, right?
Mm,
It's they don't have any real compassion,
mm,
and when it comes to business, especially, they'll sit there and say, well, I mean, there's only so many there's only so many dollars out there. There's only so
right.
much to be had, and it's either you eat or I eat, and
Mm,
my family's got to eat. So I'm really sorry, you're going to go
right.
down, and they don't really have a lot of, you
Mm,
know, compassion for each other. It's not
right.
very, they don't really, this is very broad generalizations. I'm sure there are a lot of people who hang out really, really well, but I didn't see a lot of camaraderie
Hmm.
in that
Sure.
particular industry.
Right.
And it manifests differently here, but I still see that sort of scarcity mindset, we call it,
Yep.
right? The poverty mindset versus
Right.
an abundance mindset,
Yep.
versus having this idea that, coming from a place of, I don't have to do something because we have to survive, and it's cutthroat competition, but it's mutual beneficial competition, right? It's the abundance of life, the abundance of stories, the abundance of an energy,
Hmm.
and um, and not having to fight for survival or for money, but just realizing that if it flows, then the money flows where the energy's going. What your
Sure.
intention is, there
Right.
the money will flow as well. So
Right.
it's getting people to engage, not just my folks, the other staff,
Hmm.
the chef, everybody along the way, the managers, like trying to sit there and say, don't we're not here because we need their money.
Mm,
Don't come in and try to appease people so that they can tip you more.
hmm.
uh, they may or may not like us, and they may leave us a great review on Yelp if we care about that, or they may leave us a horrible review on Yelp, but that
Right.
doesn't matter.
Right.
They may hate what they eat, but if they glean something, if we gave them
Hmm.
something of value, if we allowed them to feel better or more challenged, or if we've given them space to go deeper in their lives, then we've done something for them, and we have the abundance, the ability to do
Hmm.
that.
Right.
Should we just choose that, right? And that, yeah, it wasn't just with my folks, it was with everybody, and with myself, of course.
Sure.
Like my own questions of,
Hmm.
am I do I really believe that the
Hmm.
money is just going to come? It sounds
Right.
cliche saying you focus on good service and the money is going to follow, but
Right.
I didn't have the bandwidth to worry
Yeah.
about, that was my folks' job. I just
Right.
was like, let's just try to do the best job that we possibly can.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, no, I'm really glad you brought up this whole idea of scarcity versus abundance mindset. That is something I've just recently, within the last few years, kind of been my eyes have been open to that difference. And I mean, you hit on cultural disparities between or just commonalities. But I think there's also just generational things. I know that, and I love my parents, and they're wonderful people, and they provided for me. Um, I think that they had that scarcity, or have dealt with scarcity mindset in the past as well. And when you make a certain dollar amount, it's like, oh well, that's just too much. Like, well, what are you doing with that? I think there's a lot of it is mindset of money, and I think that was one of the things that you were working on with your folks is, what is your relationship with money? How do you see money? Is it something to buy a Lamborghini, or is it to make an impact on your family and the world? Vastly different.
Yeah, and that was I'll be honest, that was the biggest challenge for me through the entire time. It's
Hmm.
it's 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 dealing with that scarcity mindset of, let's not panic, let's not worry. and let that scarcity mindset take in or make decisions out of that. But let's how can I have a conversation given all these gaps, like language barriers, cultural
Mhm.
gaps, age differences, and of course there's the pressure of the whole situation too. It's different to have a conversation when you're not in the middle of
Yes,
the battlefield,
it is.
as opposed to being right in the front line going, can we talk about what we're doing here for a second?
Right,
Like, what's this all about, right?
right.
But absolutely, that was the maybe the hardest conversation to have,
Mm,
the most important conversations to regularly have, and the one that I couldn't have nearly enough, right?
right.
I love him. God bless him. We still talk,
Yeah.
but and it's not like everything's completely solved now, and I am the master of abundance mindset and or anything like that. We're talking about something that, in my opinion, you know, whether they existed in real life or if it's a figurative story,
Hmm.
Adam and Eve, that's the root of what we're
Very
talking about.
true.
They're talking about
Right,
a possibility of scarcity. Like
right.
there's something else out there that I'm lacking or I may not have. It is very deep within our psyche and within our souls. And so um and I might have been, it might have been easier for me to talk about this because it wasn't necessarily my money. It was my
Mm,
my folks' money, right? That's on the line here. Um, but I did want to somehow, that the artist in me, the altruist in me, through the course of it, I wanted to bring it back to, hey, what are we trying to do, and how are we trying to serve people? How are we trying to make an impact? And
mhm.
what's really going on here? Is it really just about making money?
Right.
Are we going to sleep better at the end of the
Mm,
day, having made $1 million more or having lost $1 million after a certain period of time? Is that what's really important? Or is it that, hey, we made money, we lost money, but boy, did we make an impact? Boy, do people remember us? Boy, were there great conversations somewhere along the line? And I would naively like to believe that the impact, the conversations, those possibilities were far
mhm,
more valuable
mhm.
than any sort of profit or loss at the end of
Right.
the day. Though that was far more important.
I agree. I agree.
And now, a brief commercial from today's sponsor.
Hey guys, Andy Bennett's owner and president of Interactive Learning. Our awesome little company has been around for close to 20 years now, and our core purpose and mission is to empower the future of education with innovative solutions through engaging technologies and leadership programs. We are blessed to work with a wide range of markets, including K-12, trades, corporate, and government. Interactive Learning is also proud to serve our nation's JROTC programs with over 3,000 units and 500,000 cadets. For our podcast listeners today, we have a special offer just for you. It's called our Class Tech Discovery Session. This is incredibly helpful for teachers, administrators, tech personnel, really anybody involved in helping students learn with technology. Here's what you get with the Class Tech Discovery Session. It starts with a short Zoom call. We'll talk about your class needs, your wants, desires, really your class wish list of ed tech. Then we'll touch on your timelines and budgets, plus any constraints that your district might be facing. Next, we'll look at new tech and new solutions, the latest and greatest out there that might be applicable to you and your district. And if you're interested, we'll even demonstrate these crazy cool, cutting-edge technologies just for you. Finally, we'll give you an idea of costs and professional development and how we and our team will support you moving forward. Again, that is Interactive Learning's Class Tech Discovery Session. Request your session now by texting Discovery to 970-739-2229 or emailing Discovery to andy@intlrn.com. Request your school's highly informative Class Tech Discovery Session today.
And now, back to the Empowered Learning Podcast.
I'm interested to kind of hear, like, I guess, picking up on your story of coming out of the restaurant industry, you'd mentioned depressed, that you were kind of, you needed some time to kind of regroup and kind of figure out, what am I doing moving forward? And you have landed is a probably not the right word, but your meandering journey has taken you to life coaching, and that's honestly kind of where we first picked up, is kind of as you were just starting that. What excites you, and what is most impactful for you as far as being a life coach and just helping people through that, opening eyes, helping to help them along their journey?
Yeah, what brought me to life? Thanks for asking, by the way. That's a fantastic question.
Mhm.
What brought me to coaching? As I mentioned, I was in a very big funk toward the latter part of the the restaurant closing, which was in the middle of COVID. So, I mean, it's a pretty funky time for, I think, just about everybody in the world. And I would imagine it's still an ongoing funk for a lot of business owners now. We're still struggling and trying to make it through, feeling the effects of it. I realized that there was something really off from me. Like I was observing myself and my actions through the course of the day, almost like an outsider in my own body, a third person point of view a lot of the time. And I had reached out to, my doctor and try to get some psychiatric help, psychotherapist or something, and they were all booked out the wazoo. So, I couldn't get any time, but I just knew that something was off. So I needed to speak to somebody. And by the time I was able to find somebody to speak to me, my psychiatrist, her first session with me, the question was if I'm depressed at all, or if there's any reason to keep speaking with this gentleman. And then by the end of the session, her question wasn't if I was depressed, or like how severe or moderately or whatever I was depressed. She knew I'm severely to moderately depressed. The question she had was, how long have you been functioning like that?
Wow.
And it was really more, it was an interesting journey for me as I was talking, as I was healing, and spending that time intentionally doing nothing, like spending all my energy being unproductive for a change, because I was a workaholic. How would it manifested for me? I was depressed for my pretty much my entire, adult life, but nobody would know it because I was just super happy-go-lucky, energetic, go, like fill up as many hours in a day, try to shorten my sleep time, and how to be productive, how to serve people. And I was a workaholic. I was trying to run away from all the pain and push it all into like all those problems away, and fill that with the satisfaction of accomplishing something and being productive, right? I would imagine I'm not the only person who falls into that trap, but there was a time when I came out of that, and I stopped and I said, I'm not going to, I even applied for jobs, and they wouldn't hire me. They're like, Dale, you're in a place right now. You need to be where whatever you're doing right now, you need to do whatever you're doing right now, and honor that time. And I thank them for not hiring me at the end of the day. I probably could have used more money, but that's okay. It's not about the money at the end of the day.
Right.
It was that period when I sat there and I said, okay, who am I? What do I like? What do I want? What is true for me? And trying to realign and connect to myself, the inner parts of me, my inner thoughts, my emotions, with my outer world, with my habits, with what I want to do with the rest of my life. And eventually, after some time, I started thinking to myself, okay, I'm at a better place now, mentally, emotionally. What do I want to do? How do I want to fill my time and my energy?
Right.
And I didn't have very clear answers, but I knew that I wanted to have more honest, deeper conversations with myself and with the people around me. I wanted to model, some core principles, key principles for my children. I didn't want them to be I didn't want to be, outsourcing wisdom and inspiration from other people. I ultimately wanted to sit there and say, I hope that I could be a source of and a model for inspiration for them. I didn't want them to see that their value would be determined by their productivity and how much they how much money they make in life. I wanted them to see that they were precious and
Right.
important just on their own. And I wanted to value that time, creativity, who we are, fun, and all that was important for me. But I started realizing that I don't want to just do that for myself. I wanted to do that for other people. And I could have, I could have done that on a public speaking kind of thing. I started looking to maybe being a TEDx speaker, but coaching is a different thing. It's like the wild, wild west. It's an industry. It's a new industry. It's still unregulated.
Right.
It's still not just about well, most of it is not just about the money. First, there are some coaches out there who are really just trying to make a positive impact for people. And I think it's a great possibility of hope for people to have powerful conversations, right? Have those important conversations and be asked questions of themselves. They're not just looking at the past, like in a lot of therapeutic contexts, they're not just looking at the past and trying to heal the past so they can be more present, but they're also future projecting. What do we want to see in our lives, right? What are some outcomes that we want to see in our lives, and how can we curate and create the steps and the parts and the stories in our lives so that we can see those future things happening? How can I encourage and empower the conversations on a one-to-one or a one-to-many level that so that those people can ultimately have the important conversations and ask the important questions that we all as humanity need to have asked. We don't have nearly enough conversations happening out there. And instead of looking outward to YouTube or to TikTok or to some other sources for that wisdom, how can we cultivate and encourage and empower my children, their peers, their teachers, us as adults? How can we encourage better conversations right now? I think coaching is not the last bastion, but one of the greatest possibilities of hope right now, professionally, as an industry, as a role. Maybe it was with you that we were talking. You were saying everybody could use a coach. Everybody needs a coach in their lives, right?
Yep.
I couldn't agree with that more. I think coaching should be a lot more mainstream, and we should have the comfortability to be able to coach ourselves and or coach each other or seek a coach's professional coach's help, because they are, conversations can be fantastic if we let them. Yeah.
Right. Yep. No, I completely agree. And I do think, I feel very strongly that everyone does need a coach. That was, it's only been the last few years that I've come to that realization, and that has been kind of a winding road as well. But, and I think that's honestly why you and I've connected so much, is that you were the person that I needed at that specific moment. And we've just had wonderful conversations. And I can speak with full confidence that this is very much, when coaching with Dale, this is kind of what we get, is just those deep conversations, those big questions, kind of dig a little bit deeper. We did mention, which I said at the beginning, this one's going to be a little bit longer just because there's so much stuff here. We talked about the unfortunate reality of men specifically having a very narrow range of emotions that they seem to operate on almost exclusively. I would love to get your thoughts on that and just share that with the listeners.
Yeah. I wish I had it with me. We have like what's called a wheel of emotions. It's sort of this colorful thing, and it's concentric, general groups of emotions. But outside at this wheel, you have at least 50 or so, maybe different possible emotions, English words for possible emotions that we can experience in life. And I feel like we as men in this society, we're given an option of like 4, maybe 5 emotions that we can be comfortable with, or we're happy with. Men don't cry, right? So we can be sad, but we don't really show that, and that's a very, very inner part of us. We can be happy, we can be frustrated, we can be excited, we can be angry. I maybe sad if we allow ourselves to go there or something. But I mean, that's just like 5 emotions, right? How many other emotions are there out there that go way beyond that? And who is really cultivating the vocabulary, the intelligence, the awareness of that in us? Who's cultivating um, the ability to be able to hold space for people to work through all these different emotions, talk about these different emotions. We, especially as men, we we don't hear about it nearly enough, and we don't have, because we're so, I feel like because we're so poorly practiced at talking through all these different emotions,
Mm-hmm.
sitting in these emotions, we're too embarrassed
Mm-hmm.
to talk about it with other men, with
Right.
anybody else, because it's that embarrassment of like, I don't know what I'm going through, I don't know
Mm-hmm.
what I'm dealing with. And if only we had a better arsenal of emotional intelligence to be able to articulate those sensations, that
Mm-hmm.
are happening. Maybe, just maybe, it would be a slightly better world out there, right?
Right.
Who knows? Maybe, just maybe, there'd be less road rage and,
Mm-hmm.
um, dare I say it, gun-related crime or something,
Yeah.
or mass shootings. How many mass shootings do you hear about young women, from
Mm.
by young women going out there on a rampage and doing something? None. It's almost all by men, because
Yep.
they don't have the ability they
Right.
don't have the capacity and the support to be able
Mhm.
to talk and express and work through these
Right.
varying emotions, right?
Right. Well, and you hit on two things there: capacity, support. I as a former educator, I think of the training. Right. I mean, it's one of those things like we as educators, teachers would get frustrated at a kid acting out in a certain way, and then you'd have to push pause and say, does he know any better? Does he or she know that that is unacceptable? That that's not an okay way to do this? Right. We're saying, hey guys, we need to communicate our feelings more. We need to, do this stuff. Have they been taught? Have they been allowed to do that? Have they been given the space to do that? Or are they mocked, or are they, labeled as a sissy, or sensitive, right? I mean, how weird is that a sensitive guy that's a bad thing, right? If you're a sensitive guy, that is a knock against you. You need to be rough and tumble and don't show your emotions, like you said. Boys don't cry. Um, I do agree. I think it causes an amazing impact, a terrible, better to say, terrible impact on the psyche, and um, just the ability for men to deal with all of the stuff that's going on, the pressures and the stresses and this kind of thing. And without that outlet, unfortunately, it does often come out in very self-harming, or sometimes harming others, whether that's an addiction, or whether that's an anger and just a snapping. um it's a sad state of affairs, but I agree. How better of a world would it be if we could make an impact on that?
And we can. I mean, that's exactly
Mhm.
what like podcasts like yours, and places where we can have conversations and hopefully inspire
Right.
conversations. This is where I bring it up again. Hopefully that you have coaches or people who fulfill that coaching role,
Mhm.
supporting role in our lives. For any coaches out there that might be listening on this, then please just keep
Mhm.
going and doing it. But I think it's super important.
Mhm.
It's that possibility of hope. Like, we can dwell on the how sucky it all is, and how much
Mhm.
it all needs to change, or we can, I'm speaking to myself as I say this. I can
Mhm.
complain about it all I want and talk about, this is terrible, but I've decided I'm just going to be the solution that I want to see,
Mhm.
be the change that I want to see, and make, however imperfect these actions may be, I'm going to make steps towards facilitating that change and encouraging that change. And that's why I'm doing this coaching thing.
I love
Yeah.
it. I love it. And I know that, and you, speaking of other emotions, I don't want this to embarrass you. There's another emotion. And this is not what Dale was on the podcast for, but if you are looking for a coach, I cannot think of anybody better, especially guys out there that are dealing with all this kind of stuff. We did not touch the tip of the iceberg on the amazing insights and wisdom that Dale has that could share with you. So if you're interested and need a coach, again, he's not asking me to do this, but talk to Dale, talk to me. We'll get you guys connected, because he is a phenomenal dude, and one of my best buddies. So thank you very much for this, Dale. I do have a couple kind of closing questions. We do um, a grab bag question, which is always interesting, just because we never know which one's going to come up here. So I'm going to pull up, not that one. We're going to pull up a little spinner wheel here, and we're going to give you a random question. Don't know what this one is yet. And we're going to wrap that up with this and our key questions. So, Mr. Dale, let's see here. Question number 8. Question number 8 is there a particular life lesson that you learned that you would like to pass on to others? Well, how fitting is that, right? What are some lessons that you would like to to pass on to other people, Mr. Life Coach?
Is there a particular life lesson that I would like to pass on to others? Man, there's too many out there.
Right?
um, I mean, I don't know if there's like one hot button topic that I would say is the top of my list, but I'll tell you, um, I was thinking about this the other day. I'm super grateful that you introduced me to Andy Grammer. He has this
All right.
fantastic song. I think you might have actually pointed out to me as well, but I would joke to myself saying if I ever did a podcast, and I swear that I would take one of Andy Grammer's songs. I think the first line is something like, I am not merely an economic unit, I am human.
Yep.
Man, I couldn't have said it better than that. Like he's spot on for that. So if I'm gonna give a life lesson for anybody, I'm gonna say go check out Andy Grammer and listen to that song. Listen to "Love Is the New Money" and
there it is.
And just bless him, buy his albums so he can just keep doing the great work that he does as an artist.
Yep, I love it. Actually, so I'm a big Spotify listener. That's a different story, which we don't have time for. But I love music. I'm a DJ, and Spotify tracks all your listens and all your streams and this kind of stuff. Andy Grammer was my number one in 2023. I listened to him more than anybody else, and I'm sure they do this with kind of the top tiers. But I got a little video message that says, "Hey, Spotify listener, thanks for listening." So I'm like, "Hey, Andy Grammer's my friend now." So good stuff, man. I love it. Great song. Check it out if you've never heard it. That's perfect. All right, the 3 key questions, Dale. Let's wrap this guy up here. So 3 key questions with Empowered Learning Podcast. Who is the leader that you most admire and try to emulate?
Yeah, it's a tough question. There's a lot of good ones out there. I think as a speaker, I like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
Okay.
He is an orator at the next level. He's just something else. But as a teacher, a couple of people that keep coming back to my life. One teacher in particular was a childhood teacher. I had her a couple of times, and she insisted that I get tested for what we call here the gifted program. It's like a higher. I don't know if you have the same system where you're at there, but she could just tell that I was brighter and that the school system, the way it wasn't necessarily working out for me. I needed to have a better program. But every time I took that gifted test, I failed. Like by all of the measures, they said he shouldn't really pass. And I didn't do that well in school. But she advocated for me. She fought for me. She would sit down and call lecture meetings and had conversations. And I mean, she was an exceptional teacher. I remember, I still remember songs that she taught to this day. I have clear images of her standing in front of the class and blowing into a pitch pipe and us singing the national anthem, right after that. Just a fantastic lady, but she went that extra mile. I've had a few teachers like that along the way that would sit there and say, there's something else going on in this young man's life. And even to this, like even my acting teachers, those that it would almost seem like a supernatural, intervention. They would just pull me aside and say something or have a conversation that was outside of that classroom context. That spoke to me, not just as another student, not just as another student number or something, but really wanted to know what my story was. And I admire them. And I still think about that to this day. I always remember, as frustrating, as challenging as a person can be, as much as there's much friction as I may encounter with a person, I have to remember there is a story that is going on in that person's life and bringing them to where they are right now. And we need to honor that and find out and ask questions, to be curious about what is happening in their lives. The word curious, curate, like a curator, and cure all have the same root word.
Interesting.
Care. It's
Huh.
to care. Yeah.
I love it. What was the name of your teacher that made that impact? You said you mentioned a couple, but what a couple names?
Yeah. One of them, when I was younger, her name was Klein, Miss Klein. When I was older, also a K name, her name was Miss Kruger,
Okay.
Kruger. I was failing. She was my homeroom teacher. I was failing most of her classes, and by the end of the year, I had straight A's because
I
she
love it.
she was able to sit down and have a conversation with me. Yeah.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. It's awesome to as a teacher, it's wonderful to hear those stories because as a teacher in the moment, you may not know the impact that they are making on you. So hopefully you can share this with those teachers if they're still around and just let them know of the impact that they had on you because that as a teacher that makes all the difference in the world. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, you bet, man. Question number two, what learning it sounds like you've been on quite the journey the last few years, but over the last 2023, since we just started 2024, what learning most impacted you in 2023?
Yeah, the hardest one that I'm still wrestling with is the fundamental premise of coaching, which is that every person is not broken. We don't
Mm,
need
okay.
our help. We're
Right.
not advising as coaches. We don't give advice. We're not mentors. We're not counseling them. But every person is fundamentally whole and
Mm-hmm.
creative, and they are fully sufficient in and of themselves. We're
Mm,
not giving them answers. We're helping them to find the answers and be the person um, they need to be. So it's a fundamental shift that I'm still really working through,
mm,
but it's challenged and it continues to challenge everything about me. But I think it's the greatest thing about coaching, more than mentoring or counseling or anything else. I mean, you talked about I've given you nuggets of wisdom. I assure you, all the wisdom that has ever come out of our sessions together, Andy, have all been your own because I do
oh,
my best not to give you any advice whatsoever. Yeah, that's important for me. Yes.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, I think you're selling yourself a little bit short there, but yes.
Oh, thanks, man.
All right, and the last one, which I love, I think it's one of those things that well, not to get too far off the rails here, it's one of those things like when you're looking at buying a car, you start seeing that car everywhere. Same kind of thing with this word empowered. I've loved that word for a long time. Obviously, that's the name of the podcast. You mentioned it without me, giving you any seeds there a couple times, just in the context of your conversation and your journey. So, how would you, Dale, empower learning for future generations?
Man, what a great question. I think I think it goes back to that root word of care and
Okay,
curiosity,
there you
right?
go.
Curiosity is is fostering curiosity and
Mm-hmm.
creativity. Just realizing how important those are for us as human beings. You know, if we only had 1 year to teach 3 subjects to all of our kids, and then we knew that they were going to be thrown out into the wild and they had to survive on their own, then I would probably say, how can we how the 3 subjects I'd probably
Mm-hmm.
teach would be curiosity, creativity, and care.
Love it.
Yeah.
That is the three lessons to teach. I love it. Well, and it's again, we'll have to pick this up on the next time we get together here because we haven't even dove into the aspect of you as a parent. I think that would be a lot of fun to kind of converse about. We both have kids, but they're at different stages in growth and that kind of stuff. And of course, we as parents want the best for our kids and all of these wonderful things that we as caring, thoughtful people are trying to make a difference in our world, and we want that for them as well. So we'll just have to pick that up on the next time.
Sounds good.
All right,
It's
buddy.
been
Thank you so
such a
much for
pleasure
your
chatting.
time. I really appreciate it. It's been a pleasure, and I hope that those that are listening got just a little bit of encouragement and just some encouragement, and were lifted up by this conversation because I know I was. Thank you again, Dale. I appreciate it, buddy.
Thank you, Andy.
All right, take care.
Take care.